I need Courtney to not be so annoying with the stick-up her like runs this
I've never understood the Kardashians. Millions of people watch their show, follow their lives, and are obsessed with them. But why are some people more connected to celebrities than others? I guess it's time to do some research. So I reluctantly watched the Kardashians, and I must say, I'm still really confused. But I wanted to share my research, so I gathered my friends for a presentation. This is probably why I don't have any friends. So the basic summary of the show is that these are the Kardashians and they're talking about their life. But in their lives, there's a lot of drama. I spent a long time on that. It's almost like a vlog, but it has Kim Kardashian. The format of their show is that number one, they show the popular celebs that everybody knows about. They put them all together. They create drama. Number four, they capture the outcome. And number five, they make it feel natural. They do that with these conventional things. But you're probably asking, why is it so appealing? And the answer is because they have a lot of money, so they do cool stuff, and you don't have a lot of money, so you like watching them do cool stuff. The most important moral of the story here is that I still don't really get it, so I need to do more research. I started where any logical person would, forums, and I found that most people tended to agree with me, but a lot more aggressively. Some people seemed quite jealous of how quote-unquote easily they got rich. Others talked about just how narcissistic the show itself is. But the problem with that way of thinking is that their new show on Hulu was one of the biggest ever premieres on that platform. People loved this show, so I found a research study that focused on the factors that made young adults watch the show religiously. They found that there was 4 contributing factors. Number 1. Parasocial relationships. The viewers had developed a strong, one-sided relationship with their favorite celebrity family, one that they enjoy feeding, almost as though they're hanging out with a close friend. Number 2, inaccessibility. A lot of the reason for watching was to get a peek behind the curtain, to get the latest celebrity intel and learn about the intricacies of their daily lives, which feeds into number 3, social status. The majority of people who enjoyed the show had very self-evaluative characteristics. By watching the show, they aimed to compare how they handle social situations versus how some of the most successful celebrities in the world handle their lives. And number 4, connectedness. By watching this show, they feel connected to their friends who also watch this show, and also connected to some of the people with the highest social status in the world. They feel like they're a part of something, maybe even a part of the Kardashian family in some way. So there's a wide array of reasons you might like them. I want to examine a couple things a bit closer though, namely parasocial relationships and why everyone had such a knee-jerk reaction to the Kardashians. Okay, so parasocial relationships are complicated. I have a basic understanding of what they are, but surprise, surprise, I need to go deeper. The simplest way to frame a parasocial relationship is like this. You find a brand new creator to watch on YouTube. Initially, you probably don't watch them all the time, but maybe you enjoyed their first video. So you watch one more. Fast forward a few months and you're in tune with their upload schedule, waiting for their next release. And maybe you've even burned through the majority of their content library. Maybe they have a podcast and you watch that religiously every week as well. In the same way you didn't watch everything that they put out right away, you wouldn't meet a friend and instantly start hanging out with them all the time. But over time, you get to know a friend better and you spend a lot more time with them. And what's even crazier is that personally for me, as I've gotten older, a lot of my friends just aren't available to hang out every single week. But the content that I watch, the podcasts I listen to, they're always out every single week. So if you're like me, you're a ripe candidate for building a parasocial relationship where a creator starts to feel like a really close friend. You might be asking, why is that even a bad thing? Well, namely because the creator only knows you like this. As awful as it might sound, to the creator, you're just a statistic or one of thousands of comments they see on a daily basis. As with anything, there are positive and negative consequences to this though. Starting with the good effects, you get social conditioning. What this means is that through repeated exposure to the creator, you start to develop some of their characteristics, mannerisms, and more, whether it's language, style, anything really. I've actually noticed this in my life because there was a period where I was watching a lot of Ludwig content, from streams to podcasts, whatever. I had it on in the background. There was points in real life where I was with friends and I would use words that Ludwig would use in streams, and I'd never heard them in real life before. That's the mannerisms, the social conditioning that I'm talking about. But this factor is what creates trends and drives the social fabric of our societies. Another positive benefit is that you get to be a part of something. Especially in the last few years, we've all been stuck inside, and parasocial relationships have allowed us to feel connected despite being physically disconnected. disconnected. Although I'd say it's more of a band-aid solution than anything, being part of a collective or a fan base creates pride in who we are. On top of that, the fact that the parasocial relationships we develop help us make more informed choices about the entertainment that we do choose. So there's a lot of good that comes from parasocial connections, but there's also a decent amount of bad. Some people can't draw the line in the sand. There are countless examples of people who have connections, or rather obsessions, with creators, artists, celebrities, and more. And in some cases, these people aren't satisfied until they get noticed. From the classic example of John Hinckley Jr. attempting assassination on Ronald Reagan to get the attention of Jodie Foster, all the way to the more recent example of Ava Majuri, a 15-year-old TikToker who had a stalker, which unfortunately led to a break and enter in the middle of the night in her family home. This definitely isn't the usual case when it comes to parasocial relationships, but it's definitely something to be noted. People can take extremes to get the attention they want in a relationship that isn't providing it. Relating this back to the Kardashians, people have been religiously watching the Kardashians for 15 years through 20 seasons of their show. The parasocial connection is unbelievably strong. And the reason Hulu's premiere of their new show was so massive is because of the fans who feel deeply connected to these celebrities, despite having never met them. Pair that with their aspirational lives, it's a parasocial connection that's hard to kick. But I don't really think this explains the hatred that I saw for the Kardashians online. Don't get me wrong, I'm definitely not a fan, but I also don't feel aggressively angry towards them either. So I want to explore that. There was a few common elements that I saw when I was reading what people thought about the Kardashians. From calling the fans of the show brainless sheep, foolish, and more, all the way to the Kardashians are narcissistic, they got their riches handed to them, and they're only popular because of how they look. The general consensus is that the gut response to the Kardashians is very negative. Now, just because it's negative, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong, but I wanted to find out why this was such a popular opinion. After reading a few different research studies, two things became apparent that could be causing this hatred, starting with cognitive dissonance. Basically, this just means that someone has two conflicting beliefs battling back and forth in their head. In this case, it's built into America's capitalist structure that a lot of people aspire to the riches or the fame that the Kardashians have. But we can't relate to the lavish lifestyle that they live, spending money like crazy, going on these luxurious adventures, and that conflicts with the beliefs that we presently have about money, which leads to a projection of jealousy, saying things like their money came easily, putting it all on Kim's sex tape or whatever. This just isn't true though. Although she made some money from that, there are several other very successful business choices they made that allowed them to live the lifestyle they live today. The next point that was made had to do with projection. Watching the Kardashians' lives and the way that their small problems tend to be over-dramatized leads us to feel inferior. Where they're dealing with a small relationship problem, people can be dealing with bankruptcy, divorce, and so much more. A lot of the hatred that's being projected comes from a place of insecurity. People want to live their lives like the Kardashians, but they simply can't. So it's easier to complain than to create something as large and successful as they have. Now, this doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. It's findings from a few small studies. But if you felt called to bash the Kardashians in a negative way, figure out why. And just remember that if you do choose to spread negativity, it isn't going to change anything about their lives, because the parasocial relationship exists in this instance too. The Kardashian show captures people's attention the same way a vlogger on YouTube would, but the scale and earning potential of TV is just bigger than YouTube is right now. The most important thing to take away is that you should be responsible about how often you watch this content and how involved you get. Don't let your relationship with this show, whether it's positive or negative, control you, because ultimately the Kardashians don't even know that you exist. Speaking of drama, you're gonna wanna check out this video here talking about the dangers of drama content on YouTube. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll see you guys next week.